Okay, so you want to buy a bookstore. You've seen the independent shops with their curated shelves, author readings, the quiet hum of a neighborhood institution. It feels like a refuge from Amazon, a business anchored in community and taste. The math even seems simple. Buy books wholesale, sell them retail, keep the margin. Except the industry has a structural problem. Bookstores are beloved by customers and murdered by economics. The wholesale discount is razor thin, the overhead is crushing, and the internet is faster and cheaper than you'll ever be, most close within 5 years. Let's break it down, point by point. If you want more forensic breakdowns of businesses that look profitable until you run the numbers, subscribe. There's a new one every week. Let's start with what it costs to open the doors. First, the lease. You need street-level retail space with foot traffic. Near a university downtown, residential neighborhood with disposable income. In a mid-sized college town, that's $2,500 to $4,000 per month. Major city, $6,000 to $8,000. Manhattan or San Francisco, $12,000 and up. Most landlords want first month, last month, security deposit. Call it $15,000 to $24,000 just to sign. Triple net leases are common in commercial retail. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, all pass to you. Add another $400 to $900 per month. Next, build out. Empty retail space doesn't come with bookshelves. You need floor-to-ceiling shelving, modular, ideally wood. Custom millwork runs $12,000 to $18,000 for 1,200 square feet. Off-the-shelf industrial units bring that down to $8,000. They look like a warehouse. Lighting. Book spines need even warm light. LED track systems. $3,000 to $5,000 installed. Signage, exterior and interior. $2,000 to $4,000. Counter, back office desk, storage for overstock, another $2,500. ADA-compliant restrooms, if the space doesn't have them, $8,000 to $15,000 in renovation. Total build-out, $18,000 to $30,000 before you stock a single book. Now, inventory. This is the largest upfront cost. A small independent carries 3,000 to 5,000 unique titles at opening. Average wholesale cost per book, $10 to $12. That's $30,000 to $60,000 in initial inventory. You're not buying these outright in the traditional sense. The book industry operates on consignment-adjacent terms. Technically, you own the inventory. Unsold books are returnable to the publisher for credit. Sounds flexible. Except you're fronting the cash, paying inbound freight, and eating return shipping if the book doesn't sell. More on that later. For now, you need $30,000 to $50,000 liquid to stock the store. Most new owners underestimate depth. Customers expect 2 to 3 copies of popular titles. Run out of a bestseller on Saturday, you've lost the sale and the trust. Point of sale system. You can't run a bookstore on a square reader. You need inventory management software that tracks ISBN numbers, integrates with Ingram and Baker and Taylor, manages special orders, handles returns. Systems like Booklog or IndieCommerce cost $3,000 to $5,000 up front. Subscription fees, $150 to $300 per month. Add barcode scanner, receipt printer, credit card terminal. Total, $4,000 to $7,000. Payment processing fees are another 2.5% to 3% of gross sales. That comes later. Insurance. Commercial general liability runs $1,200 to $2,000 per year. Flood zone or earthquake region. Add $800 to $1,500. Workers' comp the moment you hire anyone, even part-time. $2,000 to $3,000 annually. Product liability, rare but recommended. Another $400. Business formation and legal. You'll want an LLC to protect personal assets. Filing fees, $500 to $1,000. Hire a lawyer to review your lease. Retail leases are dense. Personal guarantee clauses are common. You need someone to flag them. That's $2,000 to $4,000. Permits, business licenses, sales tax registration, another $500 to $1,000. Now, the hidden costs. Publishers charge co-op fees. This is the industry term for paying to promote books in your own store. Want that new bestseller front and center on your display table? The publisher charges you $200 to $500 for the privilege. It's not mandatory, but if you don't pay it, you don't get the marketing support. Your customers wonder why you're not carrying the buzzy titles they saw on Instagram. Freight is another bleeder. Distributors ship to you at 50 cents to $1.50 per book. Fine on the way in. When you return unsold inventory, you pay return freight. The publisher credits you the wholesale price. You're out $1 to $2 per book in round-trip shipping. If you're returning 15% to 20% of inventory annually, typical, that's $2,000 to $4,000 in pure loss. Utilities, internet, phone, $400 to $600 per month. Website hosting and e-commerce integration, $100 to $200 per month. Added up. Lease deposit and first costs, $15,000 to $24,000. Build out, $18,000 to $30,000. Inventory, $30,000 to $50,000. POS system, $4,000 to $7,000. Insurance, legal, permits, $6,000 to $10,000. Co-op and freight buffer, $3,000 to $5,000. You're in for $76,000 on the low end, $126,000 on the high end. Round it to $80,000 to $150,000, depending on your city and the condition of the space you lease. The door isn't open yet. You haven't paid yourself. You haven't hired anyone. You haven't sold a single book. Now, how does a bookstore actually make money? The revenue model is straightforward. You buy books from publishers at a discount, sell them at cover price, keep the difference. The industry standard discount is 40%. A book with a $20 cover price costs you $12 wholesale. You sell it for $20. Gross margin, $8. That's 40%. Some publishers offer 42% or 44% if you hit volume thresholds. A few go as high as 46%. That's reserved for chain-level orders you'll never reach as an independent. Assume 40% as your baseline. Sounds healthy. Except overhead eats it. Rent is typically 20% to 25% of gross revenue for sustainable retail. If you're paying $4,000 per month in rent, you need $16,000 to $20,000 in monthly sales just to cover the lease. That's $192,000 to $240,000 annually. At a $20 average transaction and 40% margin, you're selling 24,000 books per year to cover rent alone. Utilities, insurance, payment processing fees, another 5% to 7% of revenue. Staff wages. You can't run a bookstore solo if you want regular hours. You need at least 2 part-time employees to cover weekends, evenings, your days off. 2 part-timers at 20 hours per week each. $12,500 to $15,600 annually per person. That's $25,000 to $31,000 in payroll before payroll taxes. Taxes add another 10% to 12%. Total staff cost, $27,500 to $35,000 per year. Add yourself at $40,000 per year. Total labor, $67,500 to $75,000. Rent, $48,000. Utilities and fees, $8,000 to $12,000. Staff and owner salary, $67,500 to $75,000. Insurance, $3,000. POS subscriptions, $2,400. Freight and co-op, $4,000. You're at $132,900 to $148,400 in annual operating expenses before inventory replenishment or shrinkage. To break even, you need gross profit of $133,000 to $148,000. At 40% margin, that requires $332,500 to $370,000 in gross sales. At $18 average transaction, that's 18,500 to 20,500 books per year. Push average transaction to $22 by bundling or upselling sidelines. You're down to 15,100 to 16,800 books. You're moving 300 to 400 books per week, every week, just to pay yourself $40,000. The math tightens when you account for returns and shrinkage. Shrinkage is industry speak for theft, damage, inventory loss. Bookstores run 2% to 4% annually. Shrinkage at 3% on $400,000 in sales is $12,000 in lost gross profit. Returns are worse. Unsold books go back to the publisher for credit. You've already paid inbound freight. Return freight is your cost. Net loss per returned book, $1 to $2. If you're returning 15% of inventory annually, that's another $3,000 to $5,000 in unrecoverable costs. The real net margin, after all operating expenses, shrinkage, and return losses, sits between 8% and 10% in a well-run store, more commonly 3% to 5%. On $350,000 in sales, 8% net is $28,000. That's your actual profit after paying yourself $40,000 as a salary line item. If you didn't separate salary from profit, your true take-home is $68,000 for 60-hour weeks. Hourly equivalent, $21.80. You've invested $100,000 and taken on commercial lease liability. This is where ancillary revenue becomes essential. Many bookstores add a cafe, coffee, pastries, light lunch. Margins, 28% to 35%, significantly better than books. A small cafe generating $3,000 per month in sales adds $10,000 to $12,000 in annual gross profit. The catch: you need a food service permit, health inspections, staff who can make espresso. Some leases prohibit food service. Build-out costs jump $15,000 to $25,000. Events are another lever. Author readings cost $500 to $2,000 per event. Author travel, refreshments, marketing. A successful event sells 30 to 50 books. Gross profit, $240 to $400. You're underwater unless the author is local and waives the fee. The real value is foot traffic and community goodwill. May convert to repeat customers. Sidelines help. Greeting cards, journals, tote bags, gifts. Margins, 50%. A well-curated sideline section contributes 10% to 15% of total revenue at better margins than books. The trick is not letting it take over. Customers come for books. Best case scenario: you hit $375,000 in year 3 sales. 60% books, 25% cafe, 15% sidelines. Net margin climbs to 10%. You're clearing $37,500 profit after paying yourself $50,000. Total take-home, $87,500. You've worked 3 years, invested $100,000, and you're making what a mid-level corporate job pays. If nothing breaks, if rent doesn't increase, the math works. Everything around the math is chaos. Sounds tight but viable? Here's what actually happens. The model assumes stable revenue, controlled costs, predictable customer behavior. Reality introduces friction at every joint. Start with Amazon. The company controls 50% of the print book market, 70% of ebooks. They can sell bestsellers at a loss to drive traffic, subsidized by AWS profits. You can't. A new hardcover releases at $28. Amazon lists it at $16.80 the same day, 40% off. You paid $16.80 wholesale. You'd need to sell at cost to match them. Zero margin. Most independents hold the line at cover price and watch customers browse in-store, then buy online. The industry calls this showrooming. You've become an unpaid showroom for Amazon. The pandemic accelerated the collapse. Between 2020 and 2022, 38% of independent bookstores closed permanently. Foot traffic disappeared overnight. Stores pivoted to online ordering, curbside pickup, local delivery. The problem? You're now competing with Amazon on their terms. Your website was built in 2015. Your inventory system doesn't sync in real time. You're paying $4 per package to ship orders Amazon delivers free with Prime. Stores that survived did so by burning cash reserves or taking PPP loans that delayed, but didn't solve, the structural problem. Rent escalation is another killer. Commercial leases typically include annual increases of 3% to 5%. Your revenue doesn't track. A store opening in 2015 at $3,500 per month is paying $4,550 by 2024. If the lease includes 3% escalators, revenue might grow 1% to 2% annually if you're lucky. The gap widens every year until the lease becomes unsustainable. Stores that own their buildings survive. Powell's Books in Portland owns a full city block. Competitors renting comparable space? Most are gone. Meet Sarah Jennings. She opened Commonplace Books in Madison, Wisconsin in 2016, prime location near the university, 1,400 square feet, $4,200 per month rent. She invested $110,000. Build out, inventory, 6 months operating reserves. Year 1, sales, $285,000. Year 2, $310,000. She was on track. Then 2020 hit. Campus closed. Foot traffic dropped 65%. She pivoted to online orders and local delivery. Revenue for 2020, $180,000. She burned through reserves and took a $35,000 PPP loan. By 2021, traffic recovered to 50% of pre-pandemic levels. Never climbed back. Students were buying textbooks and leisure reading online. Revenue stabilized at $215,000. The math stopped working. Rent was still $4,200. She couldn't cover payroll and lease simultaneously. She closed in November 2022. Total loss after liquidation, $78,000 in personal equity. Operational bleed compounds the problem. Returns are the silent killer. Unsold inventory goes back to the publisher for credit. You've paid inbound freight at 75 cents per book. Return freight is on you. Another $1.25 per book. Net loss, $2 per book returned. A store returning 800 books per year loses $1,600 in unrecoverable freight. That's 15% of your net profit on $350,000 in sales. Theft and damage. Shrinkage runs 2% to 4% of inventory annually. On $60,000 in inventory, that's $1,200 to $2,400 per year in write-offs. Coffee spills, torn dust jackets, books shoplifted by high school students, you can't recover it. Some stores install security gates. That's another $2,500 up front. Doesn't stop professionals. Co-op fees revisited. Publishers charge you to feature their titles prominently. The new Colleen Hoover release? The publisher wants $300 to guarantee you prominent table placement in your own store. You pay it. Because if you don't stock the buzzy title, customers assume you're out of touch. But if it doesn't sell, you're returning it at a net loss of $2 per unit plus the $300 co-op fee you already paid. You've subsidized the publisher's marketing campaign. Let's run 3 scenarios. Scenario A, optimistic. Year 1, loss of $28,000. Year 2, loss of $12,000. Year 3, break even. Year 5, you clear $60,000 salary and $20,000 profit. You've made it. This requires 22,000 books sold annually with no rent shock, no pandemic, no local college enrollment collapse. Probability? Under 20%. Scenario B, realistic. You plateau at $35,000 annual salary equivalent by year 4. You're working 55 hours per week. Hourly rate, $12.25. You've built a below-market job for yourself. You can't quit because your name is on the lease. Scenario C, common. Year 1, lost $32,000. Year 2, lost $18,000. Year 3, revenue drops 30% because your anchor tenant, a local college, cuts enrollment. Foot traffic collapses. Year 4, you close. Liquidation recovers $42,000 of the $115,000 you invested. Net loss, $73,000. Opportunity cost. That same $100,000 in an S&P 500 index fund at 7% annualized return is worth $140,000 in year 5, $163,000 in year 7. You've done nothing. Scenario B, the bookstore. You've paid yourself $140,000 over 4 years, but you're still underwater on initial capital. The index fund wins. And you didn't work weekends. You're not buying an investment. You're buying a $12 per hour job you can't quit because your name is on the lease. The best bookstores are owned by people who don't need them to be profitable, which tells you everything.